Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions concerning this watch. And this watch is the Ulysse Nardin Blast Tourbillon. The Blast Tourbillon, part of a series of themed Blast Tourbillon models launched in 2020. This example is the Rose Gold Blast Tourbillon. It has a DLC-coated midcase. The rest is rose gold with the exception of a black ceramic bezel. We've got a flying tourbillon with silicone escapement and hairspring made in-house. We have automatic winding by micro rotor and a sizable 45mm case. So that's the diameter. It's 13.4 millimeters thick and from lug tip to lug tip, 54.6 millimeters. This example in my hand was sold in 2021. The strap is a fusion of black alligator leather, rectangular scale from large down to small, and then rubber. And you can see there's some pockets on the underside to make it a little bit more supple, easier to flex, but also allow the wrist to breathe better. We've got a clasp here. It's a twin trigger folding clasp. You pop this open. And this is a unique synchro clasp. These were, I would say they were in vogue from about 2019 to maybe 2022. They had a short life, but some people love them, some people hate them, and there is no in-between. I think they're the coolest thing because it's the only mechanism I've ever encountered that makes a clasp cool. It turns the clasp into a gadget. When you open it, it opens in unison. When you close, it does the same. Externally, you can see we have a polished and brushed buckle and twin trigger release. You must press both for this to open. You could see that there is sort of an asymmetry to the way the chassis is put together, and that's how this thing actually works. Taking a quick look, you can see the junction with the strap. Taking a look now at the case. It's fairly flat. We'll throw it on my wrist. 16 centimeters in circumference. And the watch is a gadget, the clasp is a gadget. Gee whiz, it's cool. It's flat enough that it will fit under a cuff, so while it's definitely not what I would describe as a dress watch, it's also not a thick watch. And if you don't quite have a freak budget or you just like a more obvious time display, this might be more your speed if you're in a Ulysse Nardin frame of mind, and it will fit underneath a tight sleeve here. There's an integration of strap and case that does create a little bit of stiffness or a fight. You can see how it curves out before it curves down. That's just what I mean when I say there's some stiffness due to the integration of these elements. Now, there's a lot of fascinating decoration here. You can see the polish and the satination and the almost fractal-like aesthetic of the lug profiles. We've got a ceramic bezel that helps to shield the rest of the watch from scratches because it's the first item to come into contact along with the sapphire. So you can see there really aren't a whole lot of marks on the gold, and that's all to the credit of the ceramic. The ceramic is polished on its lip, but the other faces are satin brushed. And then we've got a crown with a Ulysse Nardin anchor on a media blasted base, reminding us that Ulysse Nardin was famous for creating marine chronometers in the 19th and early 20th century. Outboard, we have these applique faceted indices. So though a skeleton watch, it's actually quite easy to read, and it does not show your wrist hair. Some people have that objection to skeleton watches. Now, I have a fair amount of wrist hair. I can't see it here. If you can't see it on the camera, there's nothing to see. So in that regard, it's pretty tame. We have a recessed DLC case band, I believe like the DLC of the clasp. This is DLC over titanium. And then we have an individual number plate on the flank fixed by blackened screws, a nod to the way Ulysse Nardin marine chronometers would have been numbered. Taking a look at the case back, you can see the blast featuring the model line's signature X pattern, using all clear synthetic sapphires rather than the otherwise identical but red synthetic rubies. Now, it's a large movement, a very large movement, this UN 172. Note the first three numbers of the reference number of the watch. That's always the caliber on a Ulysse Nardin. It's a big movement, filling this case back well. Of course, we've got a combination of titanium with the DLC. We've got gold. We've got a 50-meter water resistance, but with a push-down crown rather than a screw-down. I don't recommend you submerge it. Taking a look at the case back, you can see the unusual junction of strap to case fixed with screws and brackets. So this is a pretty secure setup. It's not something that's just going to easily come undone like a spring bar suddenly can without warning. The wheels are all silver satin brushed. You can see the underside of the barrel which notes that Ulysse Nardin was founded in 1846 and that this is a 25 joule movement, though you can't see the little note about 25 joules. Take a look at the micro rotor on the dial side. You can actually see the latitude and longitude of Ulysse Nardin's headquarters in Laloc, Switzerland. And if this combination of vertically arrayed barrel, micro rotor, and tourbillon looks a little bit familiar, my guess is it's the fruits of the union between Gerard Perregaux and Ulysse Nardin, as I typically associate this particular train of micro rotor, barrel, power delivery, and tourbillon to Gerard Perregaux, although clearly Ulysse Nardin has made it their own. Aside from the outrageous styling with the X motif on different planes, different finishes, we have beveling, we have satination, we actually have some shading between gray and matte, and a sort of black brushed aesthetic. Taking a look at the tourbillon now, it is a flying tourbillon, no upper bridged blocker view, and it's shock protected, which not every tourbillon is even today. It's free sprung with recessed bolts on the balance, so it can be set very precisely, but also it doesn't have a mobile stud index that can move if the watch is shocked or concussed, so it'll keep its timing when properly adjusted. We have an anti-magnetic silicone hairspring and a unlubricated and super low mass full silicone escapement. And while some silicone escapements, think Breguet, actually do use pallet stones, here it's silicone on silicone, likely due to the presence of some sort of synthetic diamond coating on the parts that allows them to move against each other without dissimilar materials or lubricant added. So you've got a completely amagnetic watch and essentially no lubrication in the escapement, also reducing the amount of mass on the tourbillon carriage by making these parts out of silicone. All this is worth mentioning because Ulysse Nardin, unlike almost every other company its size, and even some quite a bit bigger, owns its own silicone technology. So silicone hairsprings, in particular in the watch industry, it's Rolex, Swatch, Patek Philippe, which co-developed that technology, and then Ulysse Nardin through its Cicatec subsidiary, which it purchased separately back in 2006. So this is all them. You can see the keyless works, the clutch for setting and winding right there, nicely decorated. The finish is excellent. The power reserve of this automatic winder is 72 hours, and then we've got a very slow traditional beat rate, 18,000 vibrations per hour, which a lot of folks think is the aesthetic perfection for a tourbillon, and I don't disagree. Given all the other technical refinements here, we don't need a super high beat rate. Lots and lots to love with this watch, and again, if you're not quite freaky enough to wear a freak, but you love everything that Ulysse Nardin brings to the table, and hey, if you love the synchro clasp, even better, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.